Hey, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a story time on how I became pregnant at 19 with my son, who's now 4. Just some information on me. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I'm 24 years old. I will be 25 on April 30th, and I graduated high school in 2012. And I think that's pretty much it, just so everything else kind of makes sense. I met the father of my child, who I am currently engaged to now, when we worked together at Burger King. I was a manager there for a while, maybe almost a year, and that is when I became pregnant. Let's think. Obviously, I was dating the father of my child. His name is Scott, so we're gonna call him Scott because that's his name. I say so many times. Oh my lord. I started dating Scott in July of 2013, and we met obviously because we worked together, but we also went to the same high school. We weren't friends though in high school. So we were dating, and around Christmas time, I believe that our son was conceived. We went about our normal business. Back then, I'm not gonna lie, we partied a lot, we drank a lot, and stuff like that. So when January came around, it was New Year's Eve, and I just kept complaining of like stomach pains, and I didn't get my period. So after New Year's Eve came around, I took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. I didn't even tell Scott that I thought I was pregnant. Didn't even tell anybody. At the time I had my cousin, who I still have now. She's my best friend, but I also had another friend who was like my best friend too, and I didn't really say anything to her about it. So I took the test in my bathroom. At the time, obviously I was living with my mom. We were living in an apartment, and Scott was pretty much living with us, you know, and he was in the other room. I took the test, it came back positive, and I can remember sitting on the toilet and obviously peeing on the stick, and then putting the stick on the counter, and, you know, finishing and standing in there and waiting for the test results to come back. And I looked over and I saw that it said positive, and my heart just stopped. My stomach just dropped. Everything was just, my whole world was flipped upside down, because I'm 19 years old. I don't really have a job at the time, because, I mean, I had a job, but it was at Burger King. At the time, I didn't have a car. I was driving Scott's car with him. And I had plans of, you know, becoming a nurse and stuff like that, and I just felt like at that point, how could I do that if I was having a child? Hi, Millie. That's my cat. And he just looked completely shocked out of nowhere, because we, for the most part, we were a normal teenage relationship. You know, we fought and stuff, but it was nothing, you know, crazy. And he said, you know, why don't you want to be with me? Like, did I do something wrong? I thought we were good. And I was crying, and I just kept saying, you know, it's not working. I don't think I'm even gonna stay living here anyway, because my thought was, in order to avoid him finding out, to just go and live with my dad. My parents are divorced, and my dad lived in Trenton at the time. And he said, you're gonna move with your dad? Why would you do that? You just finally got back into Barnegat, and that's a whole other story for another day. And finally, after maybe about 20 minutes to a half hour of us not arguing, but him being upset and me crying and blabbering and whatnot, it finally came out where I was like, I'm pregnant. And he said, you know, what? And I had said it because I was not facing him, because I couldn't look at him and say that to him. And that just shows the level of immaturity. You know, at 19, you don't know how to handle that or how to tell people that. And I think at that moment, he probably had the wind knocked out of him. And he's like, you're pregnant? And I was like, yeah. And he didn't really say much, and that freaked me out. And I said, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he just said, you know, whatever choice you make, I will support you. And that's just what he, you know, kept saying. And that made me more freaked out, because I'm thinking, like, you're not telling me to keep it, you're not telling me not to keep it, you're just telling me you're gonna support me. And at the time, I think I just needed somebody to tell me what to do, and that sounds really messed up because no one should ever tell you what to do, especially a man. We had talked, I guess, to the most that we could talk really that night, and by then it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. He had to go to work. I don't remember what I had to do. I don't think I had to work the next day. I think I had off, or if I did, it was a late shift, meaning that I would go in at 3 in the afternoon and I wouldn't get out until 1, 2 o'clock at night, which I think that was what it was because I didn't see my mom because my mom had work the next day. And we lived with my mom, so obviously I was freaking out thinking, you know, I have to tell her. I can't not say anything, especially if we're gonna keep the baby. Like, she's gonna find out. So the next morning he went to work. Was left of telling my mom, and I had said, you know, you need to be with me when we tell my mom because I don't know how to tell her that. And as a child, I have been through things and done things that, you know, normal kids do, but maybe not. So I was nervous to add something else to the list of things that could disappoint her or, you know, stuff like that. To go pick up our dog, Carlos, who I had been telling her that I wanted a dog, I want a small dog. She finally said, fine. You know, her and Scott picked the dog out together. It was supposed to be a surprise. And the day that I was supposed to tell her about being pregnant, the next day we were supposed to go to Newark and get this dog. So I was thinking, you know, if I tell her before we get the dog, she's not gonna go and get it. And I'm gonna be in trouble, which, thinking back now, yes, I was 19, but I was also not an adult because you're not an adult, but more mature than, let's say, 13 or 14. Like, you can't really ground a 19-year-old. I mean, you can, but my mom wasn't like that at that point. So I called her upstairs, and I was sitting on one end of the bed, and Scott was sitting on the other, and my mom was sitting next to me. She was like, what's wrong? I guess she had thought that it was something between him and I, like arguing or something, or we were gonna move out or whatever. And I said, I'm pregnant, and I said, I'm pregnant, and she said, you're what? And I said, I'm pregnant. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And at that point, I took more than one test because I had looked online and it said, yeah, make sure you take multiple tests or whatever. And she just started crying. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I had the window open, the blinds, and she was just looking outside crying. And she said, you know, I don't understand how this could happen. I thought I taught you, you know, that I thought I taught you that as a woman you are in charge of your body and that you need to make sure you're safe and you're on birth control and all that stuff. And I said, you know, at the time, I didn't know what the hell to say to her. So I was just like, you know, we practice safe sex, and it was a mistake. And because I didn't want to tell my mom, like, no, we were not being careful. Like, nobody wants to say that, especially being a teenager. She was like, well, obviously you were, and if you got pregnant. And at that point, I'm crying because I don't know what the hell to say. Scott's not saying anything. He's just sitting there, probably wishing he was somewhere else. And I think at some point we were just dancing around the circle over and over, and she just said, I have to go clear my head. And I said, okay. I mean, I understand. She left. I don't really remember much that happened after that point that night. Him and I might have went somewhere to just give her time and space. I did not tell my dad I was pregnant. He found out from my aunt because my cousin told my aunt, and my aunt, who's his sister, told him. And after not talking to my dad, because I didn't even know how to tell him, he texted me and said, is there something you want to tell me? And I said, no. And he responded and said, I know you're pregnant, so I'll make it easy for you. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And he just gave the usual spiel that, you know, you're young and, you know, stuff like that. And I said, I know, and I'm going to keep the child. And I'm trying to think. Scott told his dad. I wasn't there for that. He told his dad while they were in the garage together. And his mom, I believe he told his mom too, because at the time, I mean, I'm very close with my mother-in-law now, but at the time, him and I had not just started dating because we've been together for almost 6 months. I only met his mom one time, and it was on Christmas, or it was for Christmas. So, you know, I wouldn't have called her and said, hey, you know, blah, 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 because I didn't have that relationship with her yet. I mean, everybody else kind of found out family-wise through the grapevine, I guess. I don't know.